Welcome to Brainstorm MTG. I'm ELD, and this is Fast Effect, Double Speed Magic the Gathering. This from Scholars Games in Brockton, Massachusetts, which will be closing. We've got a rash of local game stores going out. Scholars, been a staple of the Eternal community for the entirety of its history. It actually predates the existence of Magic the Gathering in the dark ages before Richard Garfield blessed us with this beautiful game. Scholars was around, but it is finally closing its doors for good. And Death Shadow here leading out with Thoughtseize, seeing Brainstorm and Terminus. So this is actually not going to be Sneak and Show. It's going to be Miracles. That first Brainstorm hiding a couple of cards on top, presumably the best cards available for Brian. This is game one, so there's no risk of surgical extraction, shuffling those two good cards away. That is something to be mindful of when you're up against black-blue decks. Or really any deck that is got discard is always going to have surgical as an option. Death Shadow in hand, so it looks like the Brainstorm on the other side of the table here a little bit better. Really smoothing things out. Brainstorm's objective in this matchup for Death Shadow often going to be getting rid of dead cards, as well as, you know, improving the quality of the hand, but it's not just simple trade-offs. I mean, there are cards that are literally just garbage in this matchup, so being able to get rid of those is much preferable compared to just kind of general smoothing and chipping around the edges. You're taking legit zeros and turning them into potential game winners. So huge swing. Miracles, on the other hand, gonna need to keep that mix of counters and creature removal. A very interesting matchup, one that we're going to see a lot of. And Counterbalance gets Daze. So excellent use of Daze there. Picking up. Daze picking up a shock land that'll be able to come back down later. Just getting in here for one. So electing to Wasteland the Tundra instead of continuing to put downward pressure on the life total. Preordain, bottom two, so that is good news. When your opponent's keeping cards on top with Preordain, typically it's either going to be absolute hot sauce or just more cantrips. That is also another possibility. Delver, Reanimate. And there's the swords. Sword's a really good card in this matchup. If you're able to save it and hit two threats with at once, that is an absolute blowout. Of course, putting out two Death Shadows, two or more Death Shadows, a single Swords to Plowshares will handle all of them. But the rest of your threats can also sometimes push you back above to 13 or more life. Gurmag Angler, a good example of that. You get really low life totals before those swords can't get a 2-for-1. Just chugging on here. Gurmag went out last turn. Might have been better to put out Delver if we think that Swords to Plowshares is going to hit. Delver flips. Stubborn Denial, Reanimate, Daze. Some options in hand here. Swords to Plowshares exiling those creatures. Pretty significant. And our first plot twist here. That is a Rest in Peace. That is not typically in Miracles. Couple of fetches here from Brian. Whole lot of basics. Back to Basics, a card just recently spiked. Auctions closing out 115, 100 to 130 or so. That card has been steadily gaining over the years. And Energy Flux, and this could be a problem. Energy Flux plus Rest in Peace. All right, so this is not quite what we thought it was. Or at least what I thought it was. Swinging for 3 more, just got 3 more swings to go. A fetch land will turn it to a turn 2 clock. There's the Helm. And Stubborn Denial. That is just going to slow things down a little here. It's going to end up losing to Helm. Rest in peace in all likelihood. There's really nothing that can be done here. So just paying 1. And that is a wrap. So Helm and Rest in Peace taking game 1. Really a bit surprising there. Looked like miracles. Smelt like miracles, but that was not miracles. So blue-white Helm. Energy Flux, Rest in Peace. Helm of Obedience. Leyline Helm has been a thing since it was printed. Rest in Peace, possibly just an upgrade. Really depends on the speed of the decks in Vintage. You can use Mishra's Workshop to actually cast really fast Helm of Obedience. You potentially just have a turn 0 Leyline and 5 mana on the first turn, and that is a wrap. That is a nice way to keep your schedule open in the middle of a Vintage tournament. Don't have to waste too much time actually playing Vintage. And not going to lie, with 33 minutes left on the clock here, going to need to be somewhat judicious with the time. Got to make sure that there's enough time to actually win, and this deck has a lot of roadblocks. There's Swords to Plowshares and Terminus, so it may take a while before something really sticks. Can be wicked aggressive with the life here. Swords is going to give it back, so no reason to be worried about what to fetch out or paying life for any effect. Effectively just go as low as you can, as fast as you can. Unlikely that this type of deck would be able to punish. Could have Monastery Mentor in there, but really the Helm combo, the thing we're most likely worried about. Or just kind of creating that infinite protection with Energy Flux. Energy Field, I mean. Brainstorm. Couple of Wastelands. Ooh, so no fetch land. That is not a great Brainstorm. And there is in fact Mentor. Force of Will. Couple of lands. Counterbalance. Energy Field. Bit of a mess. A lot of really solid things here. Turn 2 Counterbalance with Force Backup. Taking the Counterbalance, that's the most pressing threat. Depending on how Brian deploys his mana base, Wasteland may be able to keep Mentor at bay. And that does not look to be the case here. Brainstorm with a fetch land. And another Thought Season. That is a welcome sight. Thought Season. Now this time, this takes a pretty big dent out of the hand. Monastery Mentor down. Now it's just a strictly reactive hand. Gonna go ahead and let that Swords to Plowshares take out Delver. Really not that big a deal. There will be more threats. May end up waiting for it to flip just to make me gain more life. It is an interesting decision. On the other side of the table, there is actually intentionally letting Death Shadow gain life. On the one hand, they do use it as a resource, and that resource is finite. On the other, the lower the life total, the bigger the Death Shadow. And when your hand is as sketchy here as Brian's, you may just want that extra time to let things develop. It is, after all, only a 2-card combo, not that hard to come by. Swinging for 1 with Delver. Brainstorm. Gotta believe if there was an instant or sorcery there, it will be on top. And Gurmag coming down, setting a serious clock. But no, that will be good enough to draw the Force of Will, but it's actually going to be with Predict. So the energy flux, or energy field, still in hand. A pair of Delvers on board. Could be a 3-turn clock. Now, Brian does have access to Terminus. So each of these first draws on each turn is going to be... Oh, and Supreme Verdict. That is the no-nonsense version in a hard cash Street Wraith. And this is looking pretty grim. Lost game 1. Hard cash Street Wraith territory game 2. Brainstorm with a fistful of cards here from Brian. And 3 at a time begins. Walking away from that juicy Street Wraith, man. I'm not going to be able to hard cast the next one after sacrificing that Wasteland. A whole lot of basics here for Brian. Swords takes care of that Street Wraith. Back up to 5 mana. Energy field. Not a fan there. Oh no! Severely punished. What a beating. So energy field, casting it without the Rest in Peace, pretty weak. There's really not much in the way of logic for why you'd want to do that, aside from getting it down in front of counters. But if they have a counter, they're going to counter something else and get rid of the energy field. So definitely an error there, and immediately punished with him to Torok. So energy field keeps you safe from damages until a card goes to your graveyard. And immediately him to Torok got a 3-for-1 there, stripping 2 cards out of Brian's hand, leaving him with just 1 card, getting rid of that energy field. So what a beating there. Predict from Brian. Set up. With Brainstorm. There's the Rest in Peace. So that would have been a pretty nice setup. Hard cast again. This time Force of Will. And a Daze to follow up. So Helm and Swords. Thoughtseize takes the Helm. And now Brian's left with just Swords to Plowshares. A purely reactive hand, which is not where this deck wants to be. It is a combo deck. He's going to need at least 2 cards to come together to win, barring one of those mentors. And Rest in Peace is going to stick this time. So now he is on the hunt for Energy Field or Helm of Obedience. Death Shadow, not swords yet. And now it'll get swords. Going back to 13. As always, when Death Shadows get swords, nice. You don't have to do any math. Continuing to put that downward pressure on the life total. And I think that's all the threats. Force of Will, pitching Counterbalance against that Gurmag Angler, which is hard cast. I don't think I've done that before in in Death Shadow, getting to 7 mana is just ridiculous. This is a tempo deck. It is not supposed to play out this way, but Death Shadow really just hanging on here. Ponder and into the Liliana of the Veil. Now that would typically be Liliana the Last Hope. And that will draw another Force of Will. So Brian just able to no-sir a ton of things here. Yeah, Liliana would have actually ran away with this game in all likelihood. Engineered Explosives at 2. Another sideboard card. This one going to be able to get rid of Rest in Peace. Particularly... Oh, and he just jams the Helm. So he's going to force the issue here. Gonna blow up. Have to do it then and there. Otherwise, I'd have to keep 2 mana open forever. So Brian not using Helm to get a Delver. Usually you don't want to use Helm unless that you have the Rest in Peace out. Typically, you're not happy paying the mana and getting rid of your Helm just to get a creature. Though, he actually would have got a Death Shadow there. That one would have been pretty decent. So back-to-back turns, Helm could have snagged a 1-drop creature. And there is Monastery Mentor. Hellbent, though, no support whatsoever for him. And now Helm gets activated, clearing the way. Yeah, Helm probably... I mean, more often than not, we're really just talking about pumping for Gurmag Angler. We may have seen both in the list already. Preordained making a token. Ryan down to just 2 after Delver and Death Shadow swing. Not chump blocking with the Monastery Mentor to preserve the life total. And Delver looks like it's going to close things out if he doesn't have some type of removal for it here. Yeah, and we're on to game 3, so looked really unlikely for a while. A couple of significant plays there. The him after that energy field, really, really big. And then a couple of threats getting Force of Will by Brian. Just really had to use Force to stop them. But that stripped out so many cards from his hand. The Death Shadow able to win a long, grindy game. Not what it's known for. Really, I believe, the best tempo deck in the format. One of the best tempo decks I've ever played. In terms of illustrating that principle of tempo where you're willing to make short-term trade-offs in order to get the game over with. It really does leverage those shock lands so well. That is not something you want to do in a long-term strategy. The other Delver decks, obviously, those shock lands going to be a huge liability. I do believe that you could do just fine with Death Shadow, even without the Underground Seas. And frankly, I hope we see that. I hope we see some modern players, you know, just kind of pour it over without spending too much and just be able to enjoy some of the upgraded card selections, Days, Force of Will, huge additions, Snuff Out. There are a bunch of cards here that Death Shadow is able to use that are not available to it in Modern. People who enjoy Death Shadow in Modern could have a lot of fun with it here in Legacy. And I do believe you could be successful without the Underground Seas. It would definitely be suboptimal, but it could be done. Load up on those Watery Graves. In some contexts, it'll actually be better. I have run out of Watery Graves a few times. Ryan here starting out Land go. My side Lava Axe myself to fire off a Duress. Or Fetch Shock Thoughtseize. More accurately. So Spell Pierce met with Daze, so this Thoughtseize getting pushed through. Seeing Flusterstorm, Brainstorm, Energy Field, Rest in Peace, and Swords to Plowshares. So only 1 blue mana. Actually going to grab the Brainstorm. There's an Engineered Explosives in hand. That'll take care of both pieces of the combo there. Another basic island, so no white mana yet. Street Wraith cycling, life totals dwindling. And preemptively getting out that explosives at 2. And Dread of Night in hand, so kind of covering all of the angles, but time dwindling. Engineered Explosives to take care of the combo finish. Dread of Night to prevent that Mentor from really being a significant threat. It will murk all of his little monk buddies. There's 4 minutes left in the round here. Brainstorm with Fetch. Brian finally finding white mana. And Swords getting rid of that Death Shadow. Thoughtseize shows back to basics too. Swords being taken. So with so little time in the round here, actually taking Swords, Rest in Peace comes down. Trying to find a way to win the game before time expires. And there's a 3/3 Death Shadow. Ponder. Ryan, my lands, basically Lotus Petals at this point. They are going to be 1 use only thanks to that back to basics. Ryan with a whole bunch of basics here. Terminus meets Force of Will. And there's a Jace the Mind Sculptor, and that'll likely do it here with such limited time. It's going to be really difficult to find a way to win. Hate to use a Brainstorm here, but it looks like it's really the only option. Oh no, just going to jam that Death Shadow. What is the answer to Death Shadow here? You can just use Jace the next 2 turns. And Humility. Brainstorm in response. Humility does resolve. We are in turn 1. Just hitting Jace there for 1. Death Shadow no longer checking my life total. He has 0 abilities. Fate Seal. That Jace going to be able to outrun a 1/1, no problem. The clock is his real enemy here. Really no way that Death Shadow is going to win from here, but there's simply not enough time in the round. That's kind of exactly where you want to end up with this type of deck. or this type of matchup, I should say, when you are playing against these slower control decks, if you can manage to be in a situation where you've got a chance to win game 3, and if things do go sideways, that they simply don't have enough time for them to win game 3, you'll end up with draws instead of game losses, which makes a huge difference in your tournament life. At this point, it's just trying to make sure that he doesn't get down Helm and activate it. This is turn number 5. Death Shadow just goes for the throat one more time, and that is it. So a rare draw here. I have not been seeing much of that post Sensei's top banning, but that's how it ends. That's all for this one. If you enjoyed the video, please help grow the channel by subscribing. You'll be notified when we upload new videos like Fast Effect, Double Speed Magic with commentary, or Untapped, our raw tournament gameplay. Thanks for watching.